Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Eugene Nicandri. I'm chairman of the Joint Authority and Canal Corporation Audit Committee. I'd like to welcome members, Chairman Canal, trustees Trainer and Balboni. Excused are trustees McGibbon and Pacenti. I'd also like to welcome members of the staff of NIPA. This is scheduled under the Open Meetings Law, this meeting, and I call the meeting to order. First item is the adoption of the proposed agenda. That's been circulated. Unless there's any changes proposed, I would ask for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Moved and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We are going into executive session.
I'll make a motion that we move to executive session under and pursuant to any and all applicable rules and regulations, laws, statutes, and Constitution of the United States of America.
Second to that
Second.
motion.
Second.
It's been seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are in executive session. Okay, motion to resume the audit committee meeting in open session.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. We're back in open session. I would state for the record that no votes were taken during the executive session. Adam, you're up.
Yep, so just go back to the agenda. So yeah, the item on the agenda is just the acceptance of the financial statements and together with the audit from KPMG, and allow for our filings per section 2800 of the Public Authorities Law. In terms of the end of the year, I gave the committee some update at the Finance Committee. Nothing, the highlights are sort of nothing that has changed from the initial forecast I gave towards the end of the year, which was that we would have net income of $23 million. That held to the end of the audit. Change in net positions, $26 million. There was an addition of a $3 million contribution to the authority from a wind project for $3 million, and that makes up the change in net position. As far as any other major changes, financial statement year to year on the balance sheet, cash and investments in total went down approximately $200 million. So between the amount of cash generated by the operations and then cash used to fund capital projects, the net of all of that was a decrease of $200 million. And just to refresh the committee, for the last several years, we have been 100% cash funding all of our capital. With the exception of the energy efficiency, which has been done through a combination of commercial paper and reserves, and that commercial paper reached its limit during the year last year, so the energy efficiency has been 100% cash funded as well since that time. No other major changes from year to year in terms of material movements, and no major changes based on any of the new footnote disclosures or things we have to do. There is an additional footnote disclosure for GASB 88, which is for debt and debt obligations. So it's a little bit more enhanced note disclosure. So we have to disclose all of our any collateral pledged or any other obligations or commitments we've made that are not shown on the balance sheet and disclose those. So there was nothing as it related to the authority that really would change than we have otherwise reported on. And that's basically the sort of the windup of on that item. And then I guess we would then turn it over to KPMG to give us their report on their audit results.
We have a motion.
Unless there are any other
recommend
questions on the financials in general.
I hear none. I ask for a motion to recommend the NIPA year-end report to the board for adoption.
So moved.
I'll second it. And Judge, can we just hold our vote until we have the benefit of KPMG's?
That's the plan, yes.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Been moved and seconded, and Scott, you're up.
Yep.
For
Thank you, Eugene.
discussion.
Thank you, everyone. We have a brief presentation, kind of summarizing some of the highlights that Rebecca Lieberman and Chris DeVenzo, who are our managers on the job this year, will go through some of the highlights of that. I just wanted to maybe give the committee just maybe a snapshot where we're at and how the audit went, maybe a few comments. In terms of where we're at, obviously we're wrapping up some administrative and final reviews from myself, a concurring partner, and we plan to execute and complete that here in the next day or two. At this point, I mean, I think we're substantially complete, and full intention is to, once we complete those items in the next day or two, issue an unqualified report on the financial statements and the other reports that we issue related to controls and investments. Again, all of those being unqualified for the authority. In terms of the audit, again, I think it went smooth. I know it was my first time back on the audit since 2013, and I know we had some change with managers this year, and I know obviously Adam and Sandeep are new, so I think the audit went very well. I appreciate their team's patience for us. I think, we obviously asked, with like I think somewhat of a little bit of a fresh lens, being first year, maybe asked some questions, some of them old, some of them new. So I appreciate, I think, the patience in working through that. We did part of both internal and external feedback, did a little bit more of a dive than maybe we historically have in terms of our process understanding of walkthroughs. Maybe not maybe exactly like a public, but more akin to a public company walkthrough, particularly on revenues and plant, and including doing, I think, a deep dive into the pricing, some of the volumes, and how we executed our testing. And ultimately, we're satisfied and had no findings there. So that was ultimately good. And again, similar comment, just appreciate the patience with everyone in that process. We reviewed some of the internal audit reports, didn't find anything that would change our risk assessment or concerns that we needed to change our approach or do additional procedures there. So I think that there's probably two things I wanted to highlight. Obviously, we talked through the conduit debt. We've worked through with management, and then the other issue, really more for next year, I think, just to put on the committee's radar, which we talked about in our planning session, is, with the new lease standard. And I know a lot of the FASB world has kind of undergone that in the last year or two, and that will be a lift, collectively, and we've already started working with management and their team. Actually have meetings coming up here in the coming weeks, so that's probably just an item more as a heads up for everyone, just to be cognizant of as we work through 2020. That's probably the big new item from the accounting world. Just wanted to put on everyone's radar screen. But I'll pause there. Like I said, overall, in good condition. We're going to plan on wrapping it up in the next day or two. And I'll pause if the board or committee have any questions. And then I'll turn it over to Rebecca and Chris to kind of highlight some of the slides that we provided.
I'm good, Judge. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you. Chris and Rebecca, if you want to go through some of the slides?
Yep. Thanks, Scott. If you guys have the slides in front of you, we're starting on the audit results, required communications, and other matters summary page. So the scope of the audit was the audit of the consolidated financial statements of NYPA as of December 31st, 2019, and we performed our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States. Other planned audit deliverables that we are issuing are the report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance with other matters, which is included within the financial statements. And we will also be issuing a report on investment compliance, which is the authority's compliance with its investment guidelines that are approved by the board. As Scott mentioned, we are substantially complete. Some outstanding matters are just final reviews and a management rep letter provided by management, and for us to finalize our audit report and sign our opinion. As far as uncorrected misstatements, corrected misstatements, we have no matters to report. Moving on to the next slide, we expect to issue an unmodified opinion on the consolidated financial statements of NYPA, and no other findings were identified. From when we last presented to you on December 11th, 2019 with our audit plan, we had no significant changes in our planned risk assessment and audit strategy. As far as significant accounting policies, those are all discussed within Note 2 of NYPA's consolidated financial statements. We have reviewed those accounting policies that are utilized in preparing those financial statements, and we have found them appropriate. As Adam touched upon earlier, a new accounting pronouncement for the coming up, or that was adopted this year, rather, was GASB 88, which is related to debt disclosure. GASB 88 improves disclosure related to direct borrowings and placements. It enhances some of the information that is disclosed within, such as unused lines of credit, collateral that's posted, and terms that are identified in agreements related to default. And these changes and this adoption is reflected in the notes of the financial statements this year. As far as significant risk and other audit matters, we have a significant risk related to and a fraud risk related to management override of controls, which Becca will touch upon a little later, and this risk is present in all entities. So Becca, like I said, Becca will touch upon this and some of our response related to that. Moving on to the next slide, we have evaluated the authority's identification and accounting and disclosure of relationships with related parties and have no matters to report there. And then regarding conduit financing, like both Adam and Scott mentioned, we have been in discussion with them around the accounting impact for these conduit debt financing transactions under GASB 91, which will be effective next year. And then moving on to the next slide, regarding any non-compliance, going concern, any other findings or difficulties or disagreements with management, we have no matters to report there. So I think, Becca, you're going to pick up from there.
Yep. So thanks, Chris, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to continue on slide 7, internal control related to matters. As noted on this slide, we have no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses which were identified during our audit. Continuing on to slide 8, as Chris mentioned before, we do have a significant risk related to management override of controls. We assess management's design and implementation as well as operating effectiveness and have tested manual journal entries throughout the year as well as at year end and any post-close adjustments. Throughout this process, there's no matters to report, and we did not identify any instances of fraud as a result of any of our procedures. continuing on to the next slide, some of the significant audit areas, revenue recognition. We confirmed accounts receivables with the NISO as well as the senior and wholesale customers as of December 31st, 2019. We also detail tested the senior and wholesale revenue by agreeing amounts to invoices and cash receipts, as well as vouching billed rates to approve tariffs. We also this year performed a volume reconciliation for delivery to customers during 2019. Additionally, with revenue, we confirmed and detail tested revenue with the NISO throughout the year and detail tested wheeling charges. Additionally, we did not find any matters in performing any procedures over revenue recognition. Moving on to long-term debt, we confirmed outstanding debt with third parties. We recalculated interest throughout the year and reviewed debt covenants to make sure they were in compliant as of 12/31 by the authority. No matters to report in long-term debt. For investments, we tested the fair market value of the portfolio of investments by utilizing our national pricing desk. We sampled investments to ensure they were in compliance with the board-approved policies. We confirmed investment balances with the respective banks as of 12/31, and we reviewed the consolidated financial statements for completeness and accuracy of the trust assets. There was no matters to report for investments. Moving on to the next slide for capital assets, we performed a roll forward for CWIP and plant and service and tested additions to the CWIP and additions to the plant and service, as well as retirements in the plant and service. We performed substantive analytics to determine the appropriateness of depreciation expense and as well ensure that the proper classification between capital and operating leases. There was no impairment. We also ensured proper impairment disclosure within the financial statements, and there was no matters to report for capital assets. For OPEB, we confirmed with the actuarial specialist utilized by NYPA, Buck Consultants, as well as utilized our KPMG actuary specialist to validate the appropriateness of the liability, and we had no matters to report as well.
So a good, clean audit all the way around.
Scott?
Yeah, John, sorry. I'm sorry I was on. Yeah, I think, like I said, I think there were, with the new teams, and like I said, we may have drove a few people crazy, but I think it went very well. And no significant findings or concerns. And, we've already kind of started working with Sandeep on talking through how we can even improve the process next year collectively. So, but overall, everything went smooth and no concerns on our end at this point, John.
Okay, great. Well, kudos, Gil, Adam, and the team at large. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. Very well. We need a vote on Scott or Adam's presentation, I think, not the KPMG report.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item, Angela.
We'll have an executive session with KPMG just to put that on the record. So we'll have that at the close of the meeting, right, Judge?
That's correct.
Great.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Yep. Okay. Good morning, trustees and NYPA staff and KPMG. I'm glad to be here to give you an update on our 2020 internal audit plan for both NYPA and Canals. If I can focus your attention on the slide that says internal audit scorecard. This is just coming back to the audit committee. There were questions from the December meeting regarding the content of the scorecard. We did have a lot of metrics on there, so we've pared it down. Two buckets of information and metrics. We did some more benchmarking. Where we couldn't benchmark, we did create some internal targets. So I just want to, the two buckets here are operational excellence or audit, and then the value and impact related to observations and recommendations that we provide to management from our audit work. So if I can just to highlight on the operational excellence side, we've a majority of the metrics here, we hit the benchmark. We only had one internal metric that related to opinions that we give. This metric, this internal target has been in place for a while. We hit the 50% of providing opinions on our reports. The only metric here that we didn't reach is the audit utilization rate, and the reason for that is the benchmark is 75%, and it's a Gartner benchmark. We're at 65%, and the reason for that is a third of our time goes into reinvestment into internal audit initiatives related to GRC automation, standing up a quality assurance improvement program, and investment in data analytics. But we are hoping to move the needle along, down the road to reach that benchmark. On the other side of the coin here is value and impact. So these are the key metrics that we've come down to. The first one is really just a more information indicator of how many observations we're finding in terms of that are high rated. So you can see between 2018 and 19, it's a little less. The next one is percentage of high-risk observations implemented. In 2018, we've implemented all the high, and in 2019 here, we are projecting to move to 100%. We're 89% already, and all of this data is as of March 13th, so we still have a lot of the years ahead of us to get to 100%. The next metric is percentage of all observations implemented by original due date. In 2018, we only reached 85%. In 19, we're already at 80%. So the benchmark here, which is also a Gartner benchmark, we are projecting to reach that percentage by the year end. Just want to note that some of the things that were not for 18, some of the things that were not implemented on time were legitimate reasons. There was due to new technologies coming in that weren't implemented yet, limited resource or change in organization or change in process structure. So we did have legitimate reasons for these, as well as the percentage of extended observations. We had 15 in 2018. We have 14 now so far in 2019, but and the benchmark here is at 9%. We're a little higher, but like I said, legitimate reasons why. The percentage, the last metric here is percentage of observations extended and implemented. We have 5 that are still open from 2018. Actually, 1 is closing as we speak. And then so far, whatever's extended in 2019, we have closed all of them. We should reach the 100% mark there. Do you have any specific questions on the scorecard?
Wouldn't want to disappoint and not offer a few thoughts here, Angela. So one, kudos. I really like what you've done with the scorecard. I like the changes and, frankly, our ability to focus on those items that matter. In terms of, one, the ongoing bugaboo, or at least the bug up my butt relative to implementation. At this point, I know you've got some additional information, but I just want to ensure we clean up. So to the extent, you've got a industry benchmark, Gardner, or whatever driven that says less than 10% of your items ought to carry over, and 2 years later, we've still got 15%. I want to get us out of that zone. And however, quote unquote, legitimate the reasons are, to the extent we're forever in that legitimate reason zone, that in itself begs a question. So I'd still like to see, again, from management, this is more to Gil and the team and less to you, that we have a good game plan to remedy our inability to resolve these matters on a more timely basis. So I'm not sure what Gil and the team want to come back with, but not because it's red, but just because we've talked about it forever, and it is a continuance. I'd like to see us affect some real change here, and if there are legitimate reasons, and everyone agrees there are legitimate reasons, then I'm not sure we ought to even classify them as extended observations then. So if they can't clean up, and remedy the problem, and you agree it's okay, then let's find a better way there, because it still bothers me that we're that deficient, whether it's the absolute number or relative to the benchmarks. Two, in terms of your internal utilization, we've talked about that before, and your phrase was, we'll get to the benchmark down the road. I would just like to ensure or better understand from you how long you think that road is. So sooner better than later, to at least, 75% makes more sense to me than 65. Whether 75 or some other number is the right number for you, I'll defer. But if you could come back to us as a committee with your game plan to migrate from where you are to at least the benchmark you've included here, that would be helpful for us as well, so that we can monitor you and your team's progress to improving, the effectiveness and the efficiency of your own effort. So if you can come back with a game plan to at least hit benchmark, if management can come back, or between you and management come back and make us feel better that we're not that derelict in cleaning up the observations, that would be very helpful.
Okay, will do.
Judge, you okay with all that? I lost the judge.
Maybe he's on mute.
Yeah, I was on mute. Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. And
Okay.
Gil,
Thank you.
Executive Committee can respond to that as well.
Yeah, we agree. We agree.
Okay.
Okay, if I can go to the next slide, updating on our 2020 audit plan. We currently have 50 audits on our plan between NIPA and Canals. An update to you, the information that you see in front of you. We have 4 audit reports that have been issued to date. 3 have moved into the reporting stage and are expected to be issued by the end of the month. 5 audits are approaching the end of field work. We're expecting to issue those reports either by the end of the month or mid-April, and planning for 5 Q2 audits are in progress to date. So that's where we are. The next slide is just changes to the internal audit plan. We don't have any changes at this point. We go to the next slide, internal audit remediation status. As of today, we have 5 2020 open observations, and 1 just recently closed on for 2019. We had 18. So we're continuing to work with management and to get these issues implemented and reviewing documentation to support it. For NIPA 2018, like I mentioned, there's 5 open, but 1 is in closure right as we speak, and that details on slide 11. For Canals, we have 5 open for 2019, and there are no 2018 open recommendations for Canals. On the next slide is just a breakdown by status in year and percentage, so number and percentage of what we've uncovered between 2018 and 2020. Slide 11 this is the detail. This is the Treasury Ops recommendation is closing, and then we still have a few open for fleet management operations, and it's really dependent on a module for a maximum transportation module. It is supposed to go live. A lot of the recommendations that the management action plans are tied to this. So they have different due dates throughout 2020, and they are tracking to close on time from what management has been telling us. Go to the next slide. In terms of our transformation highlights, we are still continuing to work on our brand. We've been working on video clips, which will be coming out much later in the year, considering the focus on the COVID-19 right now. We were able to get one site visit in to Syracuse for Canal. So we met with a lot of staff there. We had an overview of what internal audit does and our brand. Our site visits to the other locations will be our TBD on hold until travel restrictions are lifted. Hopefully we'll be able to get out to the sites later on in the year. In terms of delivery, our Agile project methodology, we have 73% of our plan is in the Agile methodology, 28% is not, because they're either an implementation, an advisory engagement, or a Canal's project. We're at the point now where we're really maturing our process. We've applied Agile to our overall portfolio, not only at the project level, and training our managers to be Agile coaches, as well as giving stretch assignments to our senior auditors to act as Scrum Masters when they conduct their audits. If we go to the next slide, in terms of GRC automation, our audit engagement functionality was recently enhanced. That's in production today. We do have our audit universe, audit plan, and observation management module that went into production early March. All our Q2 audits and audits past that throughout the year will be in GRC. We've also are uploading all our observations from 2015 to 2020 in the new system, and we'll be pulling reports from GRC. Right now we're in configuration for timekeeping and reporting, and that is expected to go live by mid-April. So we're making really good progress here in automation. And this is probably one of the areas that will gain a lot of efficiencies down the road and help with utilization. Data analytics, 31 of our 50 audits have been identified for analytics. We've applied for Q1 projects, 8 out of 14. We've already applied analytics. We are also looking at a new data analytics tool. Our team did a design thinking session to come up with requirements. We've identified 5 vendors that we want to have demos. We already had 2, 3 underway. And then we're going to decide what type of tool we want based on that we've come up with. On a positive area in terms of data analytics skill set, last time we did a survey was in 2018 when we were just launching our data analytics strategy. So we have 20% increase now in use of Tableau, 40% increase in Excel intermediate functions, and then a 43% increase in data visualization and scripting tools to evaluate controls. We're getting a lot more data to do a deeper dive on our analysis when we do testing and when we do sampling. So a really good positive. Just the next item is our quality assurance improvement program. Our QEIP team is working on remediation through the items that were identified from the external quality assessment last year. Just an update to the percentage, we're at 70% complete, and we're tracking to complete by year end of all items. Slide 15 gives you the details of the standards where they made recommendations. One of the recommendations I wanted to highlight that we implemented was we added language to our audit report that we are in conformance with the Institute of Internal Audit standards, as well as we added that our reports are proprietary and confidential. Those are in footers on the report. Another item I wanted to highlight was it's required of me to have a required communication to the audit committee as per standards. So I've incorporated that in our materials, and that's in slide 16. And we're also working on revising our internal audit report. In terms of staff, we are going to conduct a training on electric utility industry. This is one of the recommendations that came out of our quality assessment, to have more electric utility industry training other than what we do for NISO training. So we have a virtual training that will be happening at the end of April. And our directors are continuing to meet with staff on their goals, as well as encouraging them and to pursue certifications. We have a number of staff that are pursuing certifications right now. And other than that, the rest of the slides are really just appendixes for your reference. And basically, that's pretty much my report. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions of Angela?
Angela, maybe just give us some context for how compromised you are at this point, having to operate virtually, what that's doing to your thinking about executing your plan for the near term or the foreseeable future.
Well, my whole team is remote, and we've been remote. We've been set up for remote for a long time since we travel, so we had to have remote access. Right now, I'm keeping contact with my team. I meet with my leadership team every day, and they are meeting with their teams every day virtually. And then I have a team meeting, a whole staff once a week to give them updates on what's going on. Right now, everyone is engaged. They all have assignments to work on. The biggest struggle that we'll have is just getting support from management because they are so involved with COVID-19 right now, and we totally understand that's where their focus should be. But like we will be looking at the plan to see where our slowdowns will be, and then start looking at other projects that we can work on, higher priority projects within the plan, or anything that comes out of the COVID-19 where internal audit can support management. We're willing to do that. If there's specific risk areas they want us to take a look at, when they give us the green light to do so, we're ready to accommodate.
Well, I would just ask that as in the weeks that pass here, once there's a little more clarity as to what the specific path forward will be, if you'd come back to us and just give us an indication of how you think you need to adapt and adjust your plan for the balance of the year. Obviously, the sooner you can do that, the better, but I'm not asking you to do it any sooner than it would be relevant in terms of having some reasonable clarity as to what the go-forward impact will be and your ability to execute the plan as otherwise approved and what it means to your team, et cetera. Okay?
Absolutely, and that's already underway. Met with my leadership team yesterday on potential, we kind of broke it down by scenarios, like scenario A is as it exists today, and then scenario B as our staff, if the staff gets sick, and then scenario C as management staff gets sick. So each scenario is a little different. We've already kind of prioritized what projects will be high, medium, and low, but we need a little more information from management over the next few weeks as to what their portfolio is going to look like, because that directly affects our plan, and then we'll adjust accordingly and come back to you with any adjustments.
Okay, yeah, so 30 days from now, yeah, all I would ask, circle up with the judge and just keep the judge looped in to whether or not you can make up for lost time, what we need to do to compensate, whatever, and I'll defer to the judge as to how he engages the rest of us as a committee, but just stay in the loop with him as to the path forward and how different it is or isn't in light of coping and dealing with all of this. So thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay. I need a motion, I think, to go into executive session. Or should we do the consent agenda first and then go into executive session?
I think that's a good idea, Judge.
Yeah, why don't we do the consent agenda?
I'm happy to move approval of what we have in consent agenda.
That's the approval of
Second.
the joint minutes. Moved and
Yep.
seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. We need a motion to go into a brief executive session, then we're going to conclude the meeting. No votes will be taken in the executive session. It's an informational one only. And so could we have a motion to do that?
Yeah, happy to move to executive session and make a motion to adjourn the meeting out of executive session, right?
Yes.
I'll second that.
So,
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed.
Is
Okay,
K-
we're going to
is
go into
KPMG
executive
still
session
on the
and the
line?
meeting's over.